welcome on the two-time Call of Duty World Champion, X Games Gold medalist player for the Dallas Empire Clayster. Clay, doesn't it all feel strange looking back and thinking that you have an X Games Gold medal?
Yeah, definitely feels pretty strange, especially with there not being really esports at the X Games anymore. It's one of the things that it was a flash in the pan, and I end up having, the gold medal sitting on my trophy case over there. So I look at it every day, super proud of that, and still pretty wild that, a gamer has an X Games gold medal.
I think it's kind of like almost, not that it's a forgotten time period, but like you said, it isn't something that has been kind of continually added on over time. I mean, the select amount of people that, like you said, are in gaming and have gold medals or even medals at the X Games in general is so small. I want to ask you, though, kind of in reference to that, because we've heard a lot of players, including yourself, talk about how much that kind of gold medal means to you. Where does the X Games gold medal kind of rank among the other championships that you've won?
In terms of personally how I rank them, obviously I think that the champs rings, both of them, I kind of value over the gold medal. But in terms of like what I think people will think is cool when I'm older and I tell them that like I was a professional CoD player, I can tell them like, oh yeah, I have a CoD World Championship ring, and they're like, what is that?
Right.
But then like if I tell them I have an X Games gold medal, most people know what that is. So honestly, in terms of like notoriety, maybe the gold medal is worth a little more. But in my opinion, I value both the CoD Championship rings over the gold medal.
Where does the, we'll call it the 1400-day championship, right? The playoff win, where does that exactly rank? Is that fourth? Is it right underneath the gold medal? Is it maybe even at times above, depending on the time period? Where does that one rank?
Honestly, that one ranks number one for me. Like that's
right?
my number one favorite tournament to win. It means the most to me. The playoffs win that we won in Miami when I was on United definitely is like my number one favorite tournament win over CoD championships, over X Games gold medal. It meant a lot to me to finally kind of break that drought and finally get back on top and to win it with like a major tournament worth a lot of money. With the best 8 teams there. It meant the world to me. So I definitely value that playoffs Miami championship more than any other one.
And I was going to say that United team was such a force. And I want to say this, hypothetically, let's say that United knows directly after champs, hey, we've got a franchise spot, guys. Do you think the team sticks together?
I think at least 4 of us do. I know that the way we worked out the contracts with United was that we were all signed into the next year. I know that me, Abizi, Simp, and Prestini all had another year on our contracts. And I know that Arcides was like, his was expiring and he purposefully didn't re-sign for a second year. And I know him well enough. I assume he was probably going to make a move regardless, being on top, his stock being so high, like he's probably going to go somewhere else regardless. But I think the other 4 of us were going to stick together at least. And maybe if we 4 would have stuck together, then Alec would have stayed with us. It's all just kind of like, that was our plan. Like we were all planning on sticking together because like, why wouldn't you after you just won champs? And then obviously United didn't get a spot. So we all went our separate ways.
Right. Now, kind of during that time period, as big or as small as it may have been, kind of forward thinking during that moment of like, if Arcides does leave, was there a moment where you kind of thought, okay, this would be the replaceable piece to Arcides? As difficult as it is to say, was there someone that you guys kind of maybe had in a short term thinking of, okay, who would replace Arcides if United does get a franchise spot? Was there a particular player at all that you kind of thought of that could be that player?
Not really. I mean, we didn't have discussions that far. I mean, like I said, we kind of planned on sticking together. And so like, I'm kind of just spitballing and saying that Alec would have probably left or Arcides would have probably left. He never actually said that, but with him being at the end of his contract and all that, I just assume he would have and went and got paid somewhere else. But if he would have left, it would have kind of allowed me to go back to main AR. And then we would have kind of need that flex player because obviously we had Simp and Abizi as subs and Preston as a sub, kind of flex-ish. We would have just needed like another kind of flex player. Like you're looking at somebody like Celium or somebody like, just that can do both of them. So, I mean, we would have probably got somebody really good just because, obviously the team that we had, the players that we had and us winning champs, we would have been a hot commodity. People would have wanted to come play for us. So I'm sure we could have had our pick of literally anyone we wanted. Yeah.
I mean, a Celium on United, that old roster, that definitely would spark some interest, I think, when it comes down to MW. But kind of getting back to, like I said, that United team, if that roster, like we said, does kind of stick together and kind of rides it out here into MW, Where do you think they sit in the standings right now if you guys end up sticking together?
Honestly, we have to be at the top. I mean, you look at the success that all of us have had in Modern Warfare so far, that pretty much every team that's had success has had at least one of us from that United team on it. Even the Florida team had Prestini on it before they made a change, and they were doing well.
Sure.
And it's actually something I didn't think about, but we actually had Illy on the cadets team. So like we probably would have filled him into the 5th spot, and so that team we would have been really good this year, honestly, and I would have been pretty confident that we would have dominated all year, because if you look at all the top teams right now, it's all of us split over these top teams, Atlanta, Chicago, and Dallas. And so if you put all of us back on the same team, I can't see anywhere where we wouldn't have had, extreme success this year.
A major comparison that people have had with the Dallas Empire was that to your other team in the United in terms of Clayster and the 2 young guns. What are the primary differences that you've experienced with Shotzzy and Illy in comparison to Abizi and Sim?
Oh, that's tough. They're all very, very talented individuals, and that's something that I think they all know, and I think the whole community knows how good these guys actually are. I think that, me and Simp had a really good relationship even before he was on the team, and whereas I didn't really know Illy or Shotzzy that well, I think Illy and Shotzzy are, slowly getting to the point where they're, consummate professionals, and they can go into a match and know what needs to be done and pick up on tendencies and kind of flow with the game like that. And I think that's the biggest difference, I guess, from Shotzzy and Simp and Abizi, is that Shotzzy had to learn all this super quickly. I mean, he had a couple months where he had to learn to play CoD, and like if he didn't, he probably wouldn't be on the team anymore. And the guy really put in the time and put in the effort, whereas like Simp and Abizi came in kind of knowing how to play CoD. I didn't really have to teach them the basics of, blocking a spawn or rotating or stuff like that. So I think that's probably the major difference. But, Illy had all that knowledge, and so I can't say he is exactly like he needed all this work. But definitely Shotzzy needed a little work just on the basics and fundamentals of Call of Duty.
Now, I know you've always been a player that's had this infectious energy, right? You know how to feed off the crowd, and oftentimes that can kind of affect your teammates in a positive way. Talk to me, how has it been trying to keep that same energy, but now from home?
Near impossible, honestly. It's one of the things where when you're mic'd up with each other, next to each other, you can still hear everybody, even when somebody's yelling. But when you're online and you're using like a third person, voice program, it's really tough, because if you scream, you can't hear anybody else. You're just overpowering everybody else. Nobody can call out, nobody can talk, nobody can do anything. So it's absurdly hard to maintain the same energy when I'm at home. I love the atmosphere of a LAN event. I love hearing the crowd roar, and I even like to hear the crowd do like the ooh when somebody really gets smoked.
Right.
And even if it's us, and I feed off that, and I turn it into energy and I turn it into hype. So sitting in my bedroom, trying to replicate that, it's really hard. I can't deal with it, really, honestly, and I've just been trying to keep it calm, cool, collected, just really like low key every time we've been playing these online tournaments. It's really hard to like kind of give my teammates the hype and gas that I think would help them when it's online. So it's been toned down a lot for these online tournaments, and hopefully once LAN comes back, it'll come back.
Right. Well, kind of speaking of being at home, that's where unfortunately we're going to have to be for the Call of Duty World League, or rather for the Call of Duty World Championship, as it was announced just a few days ago. Did you see this announcement coming?
Honestly, yes. I mean, if you look at the state of, how COVID is hitting the United States right now, and just spiking record high cases everywhere, it's obvious to me that having players and staff travel and live, or self-quarantine and kind of be close proximity to each other, I mean, it just doesn't, I don't see a world where that makes sense. Like, I want it to be on LAN, or even like the top 4 to be on LAN. Like I would, I want it to, but I think that, if you look at it for safety reasons and from just like, be unbiased about it, it just doesn't make sense. I think it's tough. It's really tough, especially with it being like the biggest COD event ever. Like you can win almost $500,000 if you win this tournament. Yeah. It's insane that we're going to be playing, for that much money from our bedroom. I'm gonna like try and simulate a stage environment in here and get like a little desk and maybe some mannequins that, can be my teammates. I can fist bump in between maps or something.
Oh my gosh.
I got to do something though,
I
for
love
sure,
that.
because I got to do something to simulate the environment, because I can't just sit at my bedroom desk and win $500,000. I got to make it feel real.
Yeah, my question is like, what's the reaction going to be for a team that like wins that? Like, how is that going to go? Is it just going to be like, kind of the general reactions that we've seen of like, wow, this is awesome? Or are we actually going to see like hype? That's going to be my biggest. I mean, I'd imagine it would have to be, but I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting. And I was obviously, as you kind of mentioned it as well a little bit, we did see a few players kind of in their reaction of this announcement kind of recommend a few alternatives. Again, Octane's recommendation of the top 4 or top 6 kind of play on LAN. I think it was Scraps along with a few others who basically kind of recommended this idea of saying, hey, maybe we split the prize pool and kind of make a few major tournaments toward the end of the season. Maybe you take a portion of that prize pool out for next season. What's kind of your reaction to these proposals? Do you think that there is a potential that those could have worked?
Yeah, I think there are some solutions, and we've been in contact with the league about kind of figuring this all out because we all kind of agree that there's way too much money. It's way too top heavy for an online tournament. And some players are still going to risk, traveling for a better geographical location and ping. So, I think some of them could have worked. I think a lot of the options are kind of dumb. Like, I don't know why any pro would suggest lowering the total prize pool. Like, why would you want to play for less money? Like, this is how we're going to play for it anyways. So, like, why would you suggest us getting less money? That doesn't really make sense to me. And obviously there's like the options of like putting it towards these last couple tournaments. But then again, like the brackets are really crazy. Like, I think in the final tournament, it's like us, Florida, Atlanta, and Minnesota in the same group. And it's like, that's not really fair to have that one worth more than ones earlier on in the year. So it's tough to make it fair with the way the tournaments are scheduled this year. If they were full 12-team tournaments, then sure, yeah, we could have the last 2 tournaments be, worth, triple, quadruple the amount they've been worth. And that would work. But the way that it works now with, GSL style groups into single limb brackets, like with only 8 teams, it just doesn't make sense to me. So honestly, the main thing I think would help us a lot is just a slight redistribution of the prize pool, not make it so first place heavy, spread it throughout the rest of the teams, still make first place a significant amount, 200, 250K each. But, just spread it out through the rest of the teams, just so it's like, if you don't get first, you're going to be super, super disappointed. And I think, hopefully the COD League understands that as well. And all the org owners understand that as well. And they come to a solution that, fits everybody and makes everybody happy.
Sure. Now, I know you kind of talked on it for a moment there about the possible relocation of a few different teams. Players already kind of bringing up that. I won't ask you directly if we are going to see that from the Empire, just in case of strategy, but have there been conversations about maybe certain players relocating on your team for champs?
For sure. We've definitely talked about it. I hate to make excuses and I hate to complain about stuff like that, but with the way the server vetoes work out, there's 3 servers that we can pick from. There's a Texas one, a Columbus one, and a Chicago one. And when we play Florida, they've got a guy in Chicago, a guy in Pennsylvania, a guy in DC, a guy in Texas, a guy in Florida. So no matter where we go, they're on the server, And so we've talked about it. We're like, they have we call it the Bermuda Triangle, and it's like, if we were to relocate, say, send some of our Texas guys up to Chicago and like, just get a little split that helps us, it would help and it would be beneficial to us. But I don't think we're going to do that. I think we care about the safety of our players and the safety of each other more than we care about winning this tournament. And, I'm not going to put it on anybody. I don't think me or Crim6 are going to go up there. So it's going to be like Shotzi and Hook that's going to go up there. And I don't really want to send them on some road trip to give us a better ping advantage. And it's like, man, I don't like, you guys just stay here, man. Like, we're in Texas. They're adding hopefully new server vetoes and new servers. So hopefully we'll have like a Kansas one or a Tennessee one, something that helps us out a little more than, being so far away. And maybe that'll help us. And then in the end, it'll benefit us more all staying in Texas. So, we have no idea how it's going to work out. And we think in the end, it's probably a bad idea to be relocating just for this online tournament, even though it's worth so much money and so much, prestige, and I'm sure everyone gets a ring if you win it. But I don't think it's worth it. I mean, I think we're still good where we're at. I think, the ping isn't everything. I think we can overcome it if we're good enough. And I think they believe that too.
I will say, despite obviously the lack of safety, which like you said, is the most, prevalent thing and absolutely needs to be evaluated the most. I would love to see in some way a Shotzi and Hook road trip video. I think that would be very, very entertaining, but regardless, maybe that'll have to wait for another day. I hate to be redundant, but I'm very interested to get your take on this, as considering the small amount of people who have won a world championship, let alone 2. What's the argument to say this champs doesn't have an asterisk next to it?
Nah, it does. It definitely has. It definitely has an asterisk next to it. Everyone wants to win, and everybody's trying their hardest to win. And yeah, there might be some sort of competitive advantage for one team or the other, depending on their geographical location. Sure. But in the end, that check still cashes the same way, and it's a life-changing amount of money. And so, while I still think, if I win it, I'm gonna say I'm a 3-time world champion, 100%. But if you look back in a couple years and look at the grand scheme of things, they'll be like, yeah, he won. That guy has a ring, but it was the online one, Right. And I think that's just the general opinion. It'll count, but it's online, so it's
right.
it doesn't have as much weight as like a champ does, because when you're on stage at a COD championship and you're in the winners bracket finals or the grand finals and the crowd is against you or for you, it's a completely different mindset and a completely different atmosphere than just sitting in your bedroom. And it takes a lot to deal with that. And it takes a lot as a player and, as an experienced player to deal with all that and use it in a positive way, and to be able to handle it and be able to perform well on stage in front of all these people with this much at stake and all these lights in your face and yada, yada, yada. So it's there's a whole different facet you're missing here. And that's really why I think there's an asterisk on it. Not because it's online, but because you're missing the whole part of LAN that makes it hard to be a good LAN player. If you're playing Chicago in the winners finals and the whole crowd is screaming at you, it's a lot harder to play than if you're playing them in the finals online and you're just sitting in your bedroom and it's just you. So that's really where I see the asterisk come from, is that you got to prove that you have it all put together, that not only can you play the game very well, but you can perform well under very strenuous circumstances.
Sure. And kind of on topic with that, what do you think is the single most important thing for teams to focus on coming into this champs?
I think one of the most important things, at least for our team, is composure. And it's not that we freak out and get panicky or frantic. It's just that sometimes things won't go your way in this game, especially in this game. Sometimes things will just not go your way and you'll get unlucky. And you need to be able to understand that happens and that's a part of the game, and just move on and just keep playing and keep trying to get better. And I see so many pros get so frustrated, and myself included. I'm not exempt from this. With the intricacies of this game and the spawns and all that.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously that's going to happen at champs. There's going to be something where somebody spawns in a position they shouldn't spawn in, and it's going to screw a whole setup up, and you just need to be able to roll with the punches and keep it moving.
Right. Now, I know something else that's kind of somewhat interesting right now. Kind of going to make the rest of the year more interesting is gentlemen's agreements, right? Clay, how much of your day is spent trying to figure out what's G8 versus what isn't?
Honestly, I use the M4, so I just chill. I don't care. I don't care what happens. I get on, use my M4, shoot at some virtual characters, get off.
Right.
I removed myself from that chat many months ago, and Porter actually added me recently, and I've just been trolling in there the whole time, just riling them up and stirring the pot over and over and over. So honestly, there's just those guys really just need to understand that there's a lot more that goes into a game than just being oh, GA this, GA that. It's they're having issues with the AUG. When the AUG has been in the game since day one, and it's been the fastest time to kill subs since day one. If you've watched any informational videos on the internet or looked up any stats or anything, it's been the best SMG since day one. And just now, all the pros are realizing it and are oh, get this thing out of here. But it's man, you guys are, I don't want to say dumb, but this has been here since day one, and now you have an issue with it just because you didn't give it the time to use the gun and you didn't practice with it. But this has been a problem since day one. It's just nobody used the gun. And I don't agree with the way how fast it goes and how just haphazardly the teams make the decisions now. And it sucks that the way the GAs work out, just because if you're one of the 3 teams who doesn't agree, then you don't get scrims and you can't play 10s. They won't let you play 10s. They won't give you a scrims. So like you just sit on your thumbs all day. You sit on your hands all day and you're just like, well, I guess we can't practice today. And so you eventually cave and you agree, and then you get scrims again. And it's like, whatever, who cares? Like, I'd rather get practice than hold out for some gun that may or may not help us.
What do you know about this phase blacklisting? Any real thing to that to mention?
Nah. I mean, the main point about this year is that we have a tactical GA, which means that like you can run 1 smoke, 2 flashes, 2 stuns. That's like what we've all agreed on. Because, you know, at the start of the game, thermals, like cold-blooded didn't counter thermals, right? So like if you had cold-blooded on, a thermal could still see you. And they fixed that, but thermals are still banned in the rule set. But like they fixed cold-blooded, so I'm not sure where that is. But the threat is if you don't agree to the GAs, then teams will use 5 smokes on you.
Right.
And so you play them, and if you've ever watched a game where there's 10 smokes on the map every life, especially at the beginning of the year, and even in World War II, that was there for a little bit until we fixed it. It's chaos. It's just a coin flip, and we don't have thermals to counter the smokes since they're banned. And so that's the threat, is that like if you don't agree to what the majority of the teams want, then they're going to not use any GAs, which means they'll use 5 smokes against you. And so that's why no team will hold out, because like you don't want to play a chaos coin flip game. And really that's where it stems from. And FaZe isn't blacklisted because they realize this and they're like, whatever, we'll agree, you know, just so y'all don't use all these chaos smokes on us. And so like people threaten to get blacklisted. We've been blacklisted for a day, 2, 3, and then like we just end up agreeing. So it's one of the things where you kind of get strong-armed into it by the majority of the other teams.
Right, that kind of seems to be the process. Like you mentioned, it's kind of this matter of, hey, let's try to be different, or rather we don't agree. And then as time starts to go on, you kind of get back into this cycle of like, all right, we're kind of back, if you will. Is a players union the way that we fix this?
I'm not really sure how we fix it, because there's no real way to fix it. You know, even in the past, you know, back in Black Ops 3 and stuff like that, GAs weren't allowed by the league, but we just didn't publicize it. And like, we just did it in private to each other. And then, you know, if the league is like, well, why aren't you using this really good gun? It's like, oh, we just don't think it's competitively viable. And so you can just, you know, you could say that the whole time about anything. Like, oh, why aren't you scrimming this team? Oh, they're not good practice. Oh, why aren't you using this gun? Oh, we don't think it's good. Like, you can just say that and keep everything private, you know? And that's the thing, is that like, I think that GAs are a necessary part of Call of Duty, just due to the game being built for casuals and the rule set not being as updated as fast as we would like. And I just think the GA shouldn't be made by biased teams. You know, as much as pros and teams want to say they're unbiased, every team is biased, because if you have an opinion on something, if you have an opinion on a gun or a smoke GA or whatever, if you have an opinion on it, your opinion is naturally biased. Everybody's opinion is biased. And so you can't actually say you're unbiased when you're doing this stuff, because it is your opinion. And so like everybody is biased doing this. And so like the bottom 8 teams are always going to want a meta shake up. The top 4 teams are never going to want a meta shake up. And then eventually that's just how it works, like almost every time. I think there needs to be like a governing body. I don't know if a players union is what we need, but like, you know, get like Karma and Pac-Man and Aches, and like get, you know, just like a couple coaches and analysts or something like that, where there's just a third party and you make a list of things that are uncompetitive, generally uncompetitive. A gun that kills in 2 bullets, a gun that has a headshot multiplier, a gun that shoots at this rate of fire, a gun that, you know, yada, 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 and then just apply that blanket rules over every game. And, you know, I'm not sure what that list would look like. I'm not sure exactly how it would look, you know, but I'm sure there's a way, if you really sat down and had a couple people brainstorming on it for a few hours, you could get a pretty good list of what's uncompetitive in Call of Duty. And I really think that's what we need, is just some sort of third party, people who know Call of Duty, but don't really have bias, or you know, aren't biased towards what's going on. And I don't know how to do it. I'm done dealing with that. I used to fight every GA tooth and nail. I'm a firm believer in playing the game out of the box. Like, I think we should use LMGs, shotguns, claymores, RPG. I think we should use everything in the game, all the streaks, whatever you want to use. If it's in the game, you should be able to use it. And that's my opinion. And not a lot of pros share that with me.
Unfortunately not. I would imagine that not too many would, but kind of more quickly on a positive note, I got a chance to talk to your teammate Shotzi about this, and I need to hear this from a second source because it's important to me. How often does Rambo talk about his Warzone weekend victory?
Quite a bit.
Okay.
Every other day, every day. No, it's quite a bit. I mean, we like to bring it up too. We love bringing it up. I mean, he has won a lot more money than a lot of the pro players have won this year playing in that Warzone tournament. Shout out to Rambo Ray and his Big Bertha truck.
Absolutely. I was going to say, Shotzi said basically every day, every other day, so it's good that we got to confirm the source. But that's Clayster, two-time Call of Duty World Champion, X Games Gold medalist, player for the Dallas Empire. Clay, we greatly appreciate you for taking the time to come on.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.